Okay, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. We are obviously going to be talking about apprenticeships and as an option sort of after leaving school, after finishing GCSEs next September. I'm Laura, I'm your host this evening. I'll be passing over to my colleagues Matt and Rachel in a moment, but just wanted to do a bit of housekeeping. Hopefully you can all see a presentation on your screen. If you've got any problems or anything, there's a chat function at the bottom, hopefully, which means that you'll be able to just let us know if you've got any problems. We will be doing questions at the end. So if you've got any questions, I've got a couple that we've already sort of been posted that people have asked us, so we can ask those first. And then if you've got any questions, if you can just again pop those in the chat function, and then I'll be monitoring that, and then we can answer those at the end. If anybody's got any problems or anything, just give me a shout on there. So this evening we're going to be talking through some sort of different bits about what apprenticeship is, the different industry areas that West Berkshire Training Consortium offers, and the different levels that it is possible to do an apprenticeship at. Obviously the benefits of doing an apprentice, pay and salary and how that kind of works, as that's often something that people are obviously quite interested in knowing more about. Training and how that works, the support that you'll get in mentoring from the team at West Berkshire Training Consortium, options that we'll be able to do after you finish your apprenticeship, so what it could lead to. You know, there's lots of different options that we'll talk about there. How you go about finding a role, so Rachel will be discussing the process that we go through to help school leavers and school and adults actually, if they wanted to do apprenticeship as well later in life. And then what the next steps really that we would advise you to be thinking about. Obviously there's a bit of time until next year, so what you can kind of be doing in the meantime as well to prepare yourself ready for that, and then we'll be doing some questions. So hopefully that's all okay with everybody. So I'm just going to pass over to Matt, who is our Managing Director, who's just going to say a few words.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks everybody for giving up half an hour of your evening to join us for this webinar. My colleague Rachel is probably going to do real hard work of explaining apprenticeships in more detail, but I'd like to set the scene about West Berkshire Training Consortium, who we are, what we do, and why you or your son or daughter or somebody you may know might want to do an apprenticeship with us. And for those of you who live locally, you probably have heard of us. We've been in Newbury since 1983. We're a not-for-profit charity, and we specialise in apprenticeships and traineeships as well. And one of the really rewarding things about what we do is you can meet people who are maybe in their 30s, 40s or 50s who were apprentices with us back in the 1980s and 1990s. And they're taking on apprentices of their own today. And so our name is West Berkshire Training Consortium. We are very much West Berkshire. We see ourselves as part of the community. We want to invest in it. And it's great when young people become apprentices with local businesses as well. Being a charity and being not-for-profit means we can develop a kind of personal touch for our learners. So we're not particularly big. Even as managing director, I get to know our learners and know their stories and take a real keen interest in what happens after the apprenticeship. Because for me, the purpose of an apprenticeship is not to complete an apprenticeship, but to start the journey, a transformative journey, on a rewarding and fulfilling career. And so we put a lot of effort into finding out what happens to our apprentices once they finish. So to give you a couple of examples, an apprentice with West Berkshire Training Consortium has a 15% greater chance of fully completing their apprenticeship compared to the national average. Over 90% remain with their employer, and within that, 80% go on to secure either a promotion, take on added responsibility, or go on to further learning. So it's their first step, the first rung of a ladder they want to climb, of continual improvement, continual development as they realise their ambitions. But of course, we do live in strange times, and in 2020, we have seen apprenticeship recruitment down about 50%, but not universally. So there are still industries who are doing well, thriving under the circumstances, particularly in things like IT, in healthcare and within the public sector. So apprentice recruitment in the summer just gone was higher than perhaps we would have expected. But looking ahead, for those who are leaving school or leaving college, what does 2021 hold in store? I think there's a lot of pent-up demand, particularly within the West Berkshire economy. There's probably going to be quite a lot of consumer demand once the pandemic abates. And we will see, I think, many employers rush to restart or even for the first time begin apprenticeship recruitment, not just in the industries I've mentioned, but in many of the big employment sectors in West Berkshire, so IT, professional services, engineering as examples. So it's a really good time to be getting more information about programs and how the apprenticeship works. Typically, it starts in earnest around about Easter, so it's a good time now to get information and advice from a provider like us. And begin to prepare, thinking about the sort of sector, the sort of job that you would like to do as an apprentice. Of course, we don't know when the bounce back will occur. However, what will be true is that we will be here and ready. And even though many people are working from home, many industries and sectors have had to change, we have seen employers ready and able to adapt to that method of working. So we're already seeing brand new apprentices starting jobs where maybe they're in the workplace 3 days a week, but being well supported and mentored, working from home the other 2 days a week. And we're doing it ourselves. Our apprentice actually works 5 days a week from home, and we're able to train, mentor and coach him just as effectively as when we were working normally. So irrespective of what the next year has to bring, we've been going 37 years. We're definitely here to stay. And we'd really welcome whether you are an apprentice applicant yourself or a mom or dad or a friend, get in touch. We're here to give you the advice and guidance you need to make the right choice. And that's the overview. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Rachel, who gives you a more detailed view of apprenticeships at WBTC. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. So yeah, I'm Rachel. I work in the business development team. My role really consists of working with those school leavers for year 11, 12 and 13. We do work with those older, and there are companies who upskill within their workforce, but predominantly I'm there in the schools and under normal circumstances, meeting with young people to really guide them through the apprenticeship process. An apprenticeship is where you earn while you learn. It is that simple. So this is where I will be out talking to businesses who have a real job. So they have an employment need for somebody that they're looking to train up from the grassroots with the intention of staying with the business, not just work experience, but really want you to become part of the team. So I go out there, I speak to the employers, find out what they're looking for, then ideally come back and match that to the requirements of the young people who are out there looking. So while you're an apprentice, the key thing is that you are working towards a recognised qualification and that you are gaining the skills in the workplace through mentors, line managers, colleagues training you on a daily basis within your chosen career, giving you those skills, and that would work alongside a qualification, a recognised qualification. Typically the qualification that you do tends to be 1 day a week, but there are qualifications. So you have an apprenticeship where maybe you are studying in-house, so the assessor and the training consultants are coming to you in the workplace to deliver training, assessments, reviews. But traditionally it used to be 4 days a week in the workplace and 1 day a week at college or a training centre such as ourselves. There is a much wider programme of apprenticeships out there. Going back 30 years ago, it was always seen as the practical trades such as plumbing, electrician, but it's very different now. They've opened that up to much wider scope, which we'll look at next. We offer a wide range of apprenticeships. However, there are some we don't offer. So one of the key things I'd say is when you're talking to us, as well as advice and guidance on what we can offer, we're more than happy to signpost you elsewhere. So if you were to come to me and say you're interested in childcare or animal care, we would give you advice and guidance on where else you could look at that. What we offer, finance, management, construction, office-based apprenticeships, cover a wide range of industries. So you could be a business apprentice and you could be working for a pharmaceutical company. You could be a business apprentice supporting a local dry cleaners. There's so much scope within these qualifications. You could be studying towards your AAT as a finance apprentice, working for a huge practice. Or you could be in a small office working for a local business. Construction, again, these are the traditional ones, really varied, all have the same process where 4 days a week you would be on site, being trained by your mentor and your manager, 1 day a week at college. Engineering, very similar. You could take on a role where you are manufacturing parts for an oil plant. Equally, you could be doing electrical maintenance, ensuring that a production line making cereal boxes keeps running 24/7. So really varied the different organisations you could work for. IT and telecoms, that has been huge this year. Following on from what Matt said, it's been an industry that's done well out of the COVID crisis. So we've seen an increase this year in the recruitment on that side. And you could be doing first line support, where you are taking calls from people who are stuck on their email or need to upgrade to the newest Windows. Or you could be doing cybersecurity, software development. Teaching assistant, I'm quite sure that in the time that you've been at school, you will have come across people, you may not have realised it, who are working towards a teaching assistant apprenticeship. And logistics is a very, very big area around here. Because of where we're based, there's a lot of logistics, and that has really good promotion opportunities as well. The level of an apprenticeship that you start at is always a point for discussion. So the level has to match the role that you are fulfilling. So typically, generally speaking, you would go in sort of intermediate or advanced. It really depends on what you're bringing to the role, so the experience that you have and prior qualifications, and what the role can offer you. To complete your apprenticeship, you have to show that you have experience fulfilling different tasks. You have to show that you are competent doing the job. So if you are in a role where you have to deal with customers and customer complaints, we have to make sure right from the start that you're doing the right level qualification to match that. Typically, as Matt said, most of our apprentices progress. Brilliant situation if you end up with an employer who will finance you right the way through if it's feasible to a degree apprenticeship. But generally you do your intermediate, advanced, and if your role is progressing, we would look to see if we could progress you onto a higher level qualification. We've got at the moment a apprentice who's 21 now, started at 16 in engineering and is about to complete his degree, fully financed by the company. He's had brilliant pay increases, additional responsibility, and has progressed right the way through. The benefits of an apprenticeship goes without saying that being paid to learn is always nice. It's really important that people are aware that to be an apprentice, you must work towards a nationally recognised qualification. There are employers out there who tell people they're an apprentice and pay them less than they should when they're not actually working towards a standard. So a big benefit is that when you come out with a nationally recognised qualification, you can take that with you wherever you go, whether you progress within the same company, even move to a completely different career. That certificate shows an employer that you have the ability to learn the knowledge, the skills and the behaviour. So not just from a textbook and sitting an exam, but actually real life experience. Developing those skills in your chosen career in a hands-on experience, a real life scenario is really important. Much as you pick up a huge amount from textbooks and learning in a controlled environment such as a college or a training centre, nothing really replaces that hands-on experience where you've got real life going on around you. So changing a gearbox when you're at college with a few of your friends in a nice clean working environment is very different from working in a garage when it's the end of the day and possibly you're running late and it's a really busy sort of situation you're trying to work in. So this will give you real life experience and it really helps you make an informed choice as to whether this is what you want to continue with further down the line. Leaving school at whatever age is a big step. all the way through your life, you have had little choice on what you do. You have to go to school and attend education. So year 11, 12 and 13, having that ongoing support through an apprenticeship is really beneficial. You've got somebody else who's looking out for you, somebody else who can basically guide you through that process, because it is quite a big step, especially given the last year that everybody's had. The opportunity to progress is brilliant. We always talk to our apprentices about a third of the way through. We're looking at the next steps. What can they do? Would you like to move on to another qualification, take on additional responsibilities? No student loan. It goes without saying, it's very nice to come out with a salary, no debt, and the qualification, and obviously the experience behind you, and paid holiday. Always a bit of a shock when you leave school and you go from your 6 weeks at summer and your Easter break and your Christmas break to 23 or 25 days. You really do appreciate that holiday time, and having it paid is obviously an added bonus. Pay and salary, which is very key. Apprenticeships are excluded from the standard national minimum wage. Personally, and as an organisation, we encourage employers that we work with to pay above the minimum required, which is £4.15 an hour. And I can almost feel the shock. A lot of people who have got part-time work may be earning more than that at the moment. It's looking at the bigger picture. We ask employers to pay £4.75 as a minimum. We feel that given the area that we live in, that's not unreasonable. And most employers manage to find that salary and more. I think the average salary is probably around about 12,000. There are some employers locally who pay 17,000. But traditionally, I'd say you're looking around about £12,000, so about £6 an hour. But you have to remember they're obviously paying towards the time that you're training as well. If you're 19 or over, or if you've completed the first year, that goes up to your national minimum wage. But generally speaking, when an employer is talking to me about recruiting, we are very reluctant to take on vacancies at that minimum wage. We do ask them to look at it in a bit more detail. That said, it's quite important to also consider the bigger picture. If a company comes to me and they have a fantastic apprenticeship scheme, they've progressed their apprentices, supported them through promotions, pay rises, you do need to sometimes look at the bigger picture, because some companies are tied into the wages they offer. They may have other offices, other branches that they have to fit in with, or it could be they have to fit with a pay scale. So it's always looking at the bigger picture. Excuse me, minor technical hitch. Training, we're back on track. So as an apprentice, you will receive formal training. Every day, every minute that you are working, you are being trained. All apprentices have to complete 20% of their time as off-the-job training. So that's away from your immediate pressures of work that you do. So that tends to be covered through the training that you would do with a training organisation such as us, or going to college for a day. But also you are documenting everything that you are taught in the workplace. It's really important that we make sure that you progress, and we mention this at a later stage. You will be acquiring the knowledge, the skills and the behaviours to do that role, which is absolutely key for you to get through the endpoint assessment, which I'll mention in a minute. Functional skills. So this is if for any reason you haven't achieved your maths and English at grade 4 or C, as we used to know it. It doesn't mean you can't do an apprenticeship, but for some qualifications, there are absolute non-negotiation of achieving that 4. For some of them, it's worth a conversation and then looking to see if you can complete them as you continue through the apprenticeship. Whatever happens is by the time you get to an endpoint assessment, which is the end of your apprenticeship, you do need to have achieved your maths and English at a grade 4. Endpoint assessment is what you're working towards. So you're on your apprenticeship journey, and all through that, we set you milestones to make sure that you're on track. Towards the end of your apprenticeship, you enter what's called the gateway, and that's with the looking at the conclusion of your apprenticeship, getting you ready for a final assessment to ensure that you complete and pass your apprenticeship, which means you're fully qualified. Mentoring. So it is really, really key that you are well mentored through an apprenticeship. If you have the right training, the right company, the right environment, you're on track to succeed. and all of our apprentices have a training consultant. This is a dedicated person who will ensure that your training is at the standard that you need, that you're happy in your job, everything's working and going in the right direction. They conduct reviews with you. They're also talking and basically working really closely with your employer. We ask the employers that we work with to provide you with an in-house mentor. So that's somebody, might not be your line manager, that you can go to, that is again keeping track of your program, making sure that the work that you are doing in the working environment is actually developing you. What we never ever want to happen is to find out that you are stuck making cups of tea for a year. If you're on an apprenticeship with us, that doesn't happen. We are constantly reviewing, checking, talking to your colleagues, making sure that you are being developed in the way that you deserve. For us, making sure you hit those milestones means that you know where you are, that you're on track to complete. Again, we're happy to involve parents where appropriate. We give a high level of pastoral support. This fits with, as Matt said, why you are 15% more likely to succeed with us. It's making sure we offer the full package. There will be hiccups along the way, especially if it is your first experience of working full-time. It's really good to know you've got people you can speak to about the job, about home. We give a really good support package. We're very hot on safeguarding, just somebody else there to talk to make sure that you've got all the tools that you need to complete. Partway through your apprenticeship, we're looking at your options. And again, following on from what Matt said, the majority, by far the majority, over 80% of our apprentices progress. You may feel, or your role may not change in a way that means you could do another apprenticeship, but you may take a full-time with the organisation that you're with or with another organisation. Most of the apprentices we work with take on a promotion, additional tasks and responsibilities. But we'll also talk to you if you decide maybe you want to completely move sectors. We'll help you look at options there. You might decide to go for a non-apprenticeship role, or you could use your apprenticeship towards UCAS points and go off to university. Again, some of our teaching assistants have done that. They've done a year of the teaching assistant and they've moved on to look to become fully qualified teachers. So it's a really good stepping stone, because you can never be sure of the career that you may end up doing in 10 years' time. Finding a role. So this is something that I would start to look at now so that you are preparing. The big site to look at and register with is Find an Apprenticeship, which is on gov.uk. This will give you access so you can search by location, by job type. If you look at it now, it's a bit of a sorry state of affairs, which is because of time of year and also because of COVID. So there's not a huge amount on there, but if you get familiar with the site, it just means that when you're applying, it's just that little bit easier, and you can also set up alerts. It'll also give you an idea about the sort of apprenticeships that are out there so that you can keep an eye on and maybe look at different areas that you hadn't considered before. Equally, we also advertise all of our vacancies on our own website. It links in with gov.uk and with Indeed. So I would register with several sites, and on top of that, I would do a little bit of research and have a look at organisations you're interested in. So if you want to work as a builder, I would do some research and have a look at maybe companies that are likely to recruit. A good example is if you wanted to be a plumber, is maybe registering on a website like Sovereign Housing, because they do their own recruitment and they would set up an alert to let you know when they start looking. So definitely get familiar and register yourself on those sites. Once you've registered, you will be asked to apply online. That's a good time to start looking at interview techniques, which I'll mention a little bit later. Once you've gone through that process, you then, when you've accepted an apprenticeship, then you've got your onboarding ready for your start date. So finding a role, which is a huge part of the job that I do. So this is where I meet on a one-to-one with individuals, with parent or guardian if necessary, really to find out what you want to do. So this is making sure I have an understanding of the roles you'd be interested in and the right environment that would work for you, things like location. Talk to people like me, talk to school, ask your careers at school. It's really going out there and finding some people that can give you some support. If it's not something we can do, and hopefully other careers advisors would do the same thing, we would signpost you so I could give you details of other organisations like us that might be a better match. Excuse me. We also then manage the process. So if there were vacancies I had you were interested in, I'd work with you on your CV. we would put you through to the employer, give them the reasons why we're actually suggesting you're successful, the right candidate, and then I give you feedback. So if you've been for an interview, we would make sure we gave you interview preparation before you went. But when I get feedback, hopefully it's to offer you the role of your dreams. But if not, it's very much coming back to you and letting you know what you did well in your interview and anything you could improve upon. Without that feedback, sometimes it's hard to move forward. And I'm always surprised at the feedback I get. So it's always good to share information with people. So if I was in your situation, and as a parent of a year 11, this is the time that you really need to start making those plans, because I know that you're already in the thick of it, getting ready for, hopefully, your exams in the summer. So my advice would be to start talking to people, just to put out some feelers, get some information so you can get a few things out of the way. A CV is going to be essential, so make sure you get some support on your CV. Key things that employers will be looking for: work experience, paid, unpaid. Obviously, don't let that impact on your studies, but if you can get some sort of work experience if you haven't already, Saturday job, and I know it is especially hard if you're 15, 16, or any volunteering, all of that really does push your application to the top. Achievements in school, out of school, whether it is house rugby, scouts, Duke of Edinburgh, anything like that at all, really, really focus on those, making sure that you've got them in your CV. Chat to the people around you. What are you good at? What have you done? So that at least you have that ready to go onto a CV. A little hint I'd like to share with you is social media. One of the key things you need to start doing before you start applying is have a little look about what people could find out about you. And that means getting friends and family to dig around. All employers have their little armies out there who are excellent on social media, and they will find out what they can about you before you've even stepped foot inside the office or the workshop or the factory, or wherever else you're going for an interview. So it's really key to find out what people can discover about you, what you want them to know about you. And I've got some great stories that I won't share with this sort of audience. But yes, we have employers who do dig around to just see the background they can get. You also need to consider your email address. It may have been hilarious when you set it up when you were 12, but sometimes when you're giving out to a professional person your email address, maybe just going for joeblogs23@gmail.com is a safe alternative. Again, check your mobile. The voice message that you left when you were 12 again may not be quite so funny when employers trying to contact you about an interview, sorry. So I would say preparation is the key thing. It's really looking at all of this, trying to put something together now before it gets even more intense with your exams. Focus on your maths and English. If you can get those out of the way, it's a key thing to look at school. And I know your teachers are telling you that, but yeah, maths and English, CV, and just start thinking about your next steps. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Rachel. That was brilliant, really useful information, which I hope everybody has found handy there. If anybody does have any questions, obviously, like I said, if you pop them in the chat function, I'll be able to go in there and have a look and see if you've got them. But I've actually got one for you first up, Rachel. So it's related to what you've just talked about, actually. It's what happens if I didn't actually get my English and maths at GCSE. Is there anything that can be done to sort of help?
Yes, I think the first thing I would say is speak to somebody. One of the issues, I think, with the way that people now have to apply for colleges and for courses is because a lot of it's online. So you do tend to find it will stipulate 5 GCSEs, including maths and English. If you can, speak to a real person, because we have apprentices out there who may have been predicted 6s and 7s across the board, and then something's gone wrong on the day and they've come out with a 3 for their English. That doesn't stop them having the potential to become an exceptional engineer. For me, if somebody sat there and they're able to give me the evidence that they are the right person for this apprenticeship, and I've got that belief that they will work towards that as part of their apprenticeship qualification, you might just get a yes. So don't panic. There are different routes you can look at. It may be that you need to take a little step back and resit them, whether you do it as a GCSE or a functional skill. But certainly for some of the apprenticeships, you can work towards them as a functional skill to give you the equivalent of that 4 as maths and English as part of your apprenticeship process. So always talk to somebody. Don't automatically assume that you have to disregard your plan A.
Brilliant, thank you. Ollie has just popped up and asked, is there anything out there about an apprenticeship for being a paramedic?
I would not be the best person to ask that. But what I would say is the NHS over the last few years has really pushed forward with apprenticeships. So I would go onto the NHS site through gov.uk or directly on there. One of the other things you can do as well as on there, so it will give you the route that you could take if an apprenticeship is available. If not, I would contact their recruitment team and ask them about the different routes in. You tend to find, especially if you speak to a paramedic, they will love telling you about their journey and how you could do this. But yeah, that's not one that I'm best to advise on, but I would look on the NHS site and gov.uk.
Brilliant, thank you. And Harry has also asked about if there's anything you can help with automotive vehicle technician.
Yeah, very popular apprenticeship route. Very successful as well, when what we look for is employers who are really dedicated to supporting the apprentices. Typically they will ask for maths and English. It's a very, you need to be very committed to the apprenticeship. There's a lot more of the diagnostic, electronics, that sort of side. So any interest in science always goes down well with employers. So brilliant program, certainly worth getting in touch with us and we could talk through that option.
Great, thank you. And George has asked if you'd like to do an apprenticeship in plumbing. What's the best thing to do at this stage?
So again, get in touch with us for a one-to-one. Any experience would be absolutely brilliant. A lot of people who are successful in achieving the apprenticeship have started off with friends, family, work experience. It's really good if you can go to an interview having had some sort of experience, just so that you can explain, you know, the setting, that you realise that, you know, it's not always Monday to Friday 9 till 5, that if you're fixing a heating system or a toilet, you might be there at 8 o'clock at night. So any sort of experience that you can get really helps. And again, pushing for your maths and English.
Yeah, brilliant. Michelle is wondering if there's an apprenticeship for the RAF that her son is looking to join.
So again, I would get in touch with them directly. I don't know which school you go to, but most of them locally have really good links with the armed forces as a whole. When I go to the careers events, they always have representatives there. They're often asked into the local schools to have a chat. So yeah, again, I'm happy to pass on if you want to get in touch and let me know the school that they attend. We can certainly pass on some details.
Okay, I've got a couple here as well asking about photography and another one about outdoor education apprenticeships.
I know photography, there's something. Outdoor education, I would imagine so, because there's a lot with regards to teaching, that sort of side of things. Yep. So again, if they want to get in touch, I can do some research and give some advice and guidance on where they could look.
Yeah. And veterinary nursing.
Yes. So whilst we don't offer it, we used to many years ago. Absolutely excellent opportunity to do through an apprenticeship. It really does give you very hands-on experience, and you'll know very quickly if it's the career path of longer term that you want to do. Best option from speaking to people is to apply. I would speak to local practices for the area that you're happy to work within, so maybe the radius that you want to travel from home. Ask them about which training provider they use and the best route in, and then from there they would obviously give you the information so you can make contact with them directly. But really successful program.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Matt's also just made a comment just about the outdoor education one, that it could be an option to do a teaching assistant apprenticeship to get into outdoor education as a route on the way in. That's a good idea there. Karen has just checked for us, and there is a paramedic degree apprenticeship and in the RAF, so definitely worth just doing a bit of research online there for those ones. I've got another question here. So what happens if somebody can't find an employer, Rachel? So
I would say to anybody that I met with, as to have a few options out there. We don't know what the summer's going to look like. As Matt said earlier, this summer still been pretty successful given, you know, the general feeling out there because of COVID. So if I was year 11, 12 or 13, I would look at apprenticeships as an option. I'd have a backup plan without question. If I was looking to become a plumber, I would also have the option of registering at college to do maybe a level 2. Organisations like us will do our absolute best to find you an employer. However, there will always be times where there just isn't the demand, or unfortunately the supply of apprentices outweighs the demand, as happened before. So we would keep in touch, and I think you get to a point where you would realise, depending on if it's a course that you can start at any point, you would realise that maybe you needed to look at other options. And again, we would support you that if you had a career in mind, it's making sure that what you do as an alternative is a step in the right direction, and it's going to obviously help your application next time. But we would certainly do what we could to support you to find an employer.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sarah's also made a good point. How does it work if you'll have done A-levels? How does it differ rather than your GCSE school leaver?
The process doesn't change at all. It could be that if you have A-levels, you have more prior learning. So this is where if somebody comes to me and maybe they've got a business A-level, but they haven't had the hands-on practical workplace experience, you could still do a business apprenticeship. We would look at what you've worked towards through your A-level and see where there's any crossover, and we may change the length of your programme, but you certainly wouldn't be excluded. And that goes across the board. So in fact, a huge percentage of the people that I placed over the last few years have been A-level students.
Yeah. And Catherine has also asked, sorry, I missed this one, about hairdressing apprenticeships, and if that's something that we offer.
It isn't something we offer, but we do work, we're part of the Basingstoke College group, who have a fantastic facility there, on-site salon and everything else. So I would, again, get in touch with us. I'll put you in touch with my colleague at Basingstoke, and they will support you. They always have, every year, a large number of vacancies, different types of salons as well. So they would be able to put you in touch with employers and hopefully get you a work trial leading on to the apprenticeship.
Yeah. So Tom has asked that he lives in Reading. Does that matter?
No, not at all. So we cover a wide area. Predominantly, most of it is West Berkshire area. We've had apprentices as far down as Winchester, and at some point, if I remember rightly, over in Manchester, we've got people doing team leading and management over Gloucester way. So yeah, especially what we've all learned from COVID is that we've learned to work a different way as well. We can still give really good top class quality support, even if it's remote.
Yeah, brilliant. And Oliver has asked if there are any good geography apprenticeships.
That one's thrown me. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Not that I've come across personally. I'm trying to let Matt shaking his head as well, and between the two of us, we've got a few years behind us. So not that I've come across. I think you would need to be a bit more specific as to what you were looking to do within the geographical field, and then work from there. So again, have a conversation with us. If we can pinpoint the skills and the role that you're looking to do, we might be able to find a provider out there that does cover that. Yeah,
brilliant. One I've got actually here is, can I put an apprenticeship on hold once I've started it?
If you need to. So it's called a break in learning. So what we would ask is that when you start the apprenticeship, it would be unusual to start one knowing that that was going to happen.
Yep.
However, situations arise. We've obviously have people who have been furloughed. Most of those carried on studying. There's been a couple of situations where we've had apprentices who have started a family. So it's gone on hold for maternity. So all sorts of different reasons. What none of us know is what life's going to throw at you as well. So we've had people who have had other personal reasons where it's been appropriate to put them on a break in learning. The intention needs to be, though, when you commit to an apprenticeship, that you would be able to see it through to the end.
Brilliant. When should when should one start looking and applying for apprenticeships if I'm finishing school next summer?
So if you're finishing school 2021, I would be doing your research now. Personally, I would like to start meeting up with people sort of February time. Who knows what's going to happen, but even if it's remotely. So that's when we start to do open days, but it doesn't hurt to have done a little bit of preparation beforehand. There are, again, depending on where you live, there are companies out there that will start looking sooner. Some of them have such an extensive process to go through with background checks that some of them will start looking December, January. So again, whilst they might not be an employer I deal with, if I know it's the sort of area someone's looking for, I'd certainly signpost them.
Okay, thank you. And there's one more question here. How long do carpentry apprenticeships last for?
Typically around about 18 months to 2 years, depending on the level you're going in at.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So if there are any more questions, if you can pop them up now. If not, we're going to sign off in a moment. But just to let everybody know, so we've been recording this presentation this evening, and so I'm going to load it onto YouTube this week, and then we'll be getting an email out to you all as well, so you'll have a version of that. It will also be posted onto our social media accounts, so if you go onto sort of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn and follow us, it'll be on there as well. So if you have had to pop off for any reason, then all of that information will be on there. But doesn't look like there's any more questions, so unless Matt and Rachel have anything else, I'm just going to say thank you very much everybody for joining us, and hope you have a good evening.
Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.